Good afternoon, Bermuda and members of the media. We are here this afternoon with the Minister of Youth, Culture and Sport, Dr. Ernest Peets, JP. We'll be holding a press conference to discuss a sports update and return to play. Minister?
Thank you and good afternoon. And thank you to Bermuda for joining me today. Before I begin, I would like to just take a moment and extend my sympathies and condolences to the family and the loved ones who tragically lost their lives yesterday to senseless violence. I also want to send my heartfelt prayers and support to the owner, staff, and patrons of the Robin Hood who were present last night. As most of you know, the government and I personally were really fully committed to sport. And we're doing everything we possibly can to allow both local and international activities to resume safely. Local sport in particular is extremely important to our social, physical, and mental well-being, as well as our national aspirations regarding sport. We recognize that this and we strive to benefit as well as balance the need of sport and to keep the population safe during this pandemic. We understand that COVID-19 has disrupted recreation and competitive sports, and we appreciate everyone's patience and collaboration as we chart our way forward to keep our community safe and our economy open. The return to play guidance was put in place originally last year before vaccination and antigen testing were available. Accordingly, the stages of guidance has been updated to incorporate these new developments. We are in active dialogue, I can report, with the Association of National Sports Governing Bodies to create a new return to sport guidance document that better reflects our current situation. And we hope to release this new document and new guidance in early November. Until that time, the return to play guidance remains in effect. And I'm pleased to announce that effective on Saturday, October 30th, we're moving sport to stage 4B, which includes full competition and spectators. To be clear, the public health regulations place a limit of group sizes on sports, and we must abide by this limit, which is currently at 20 persons. However, NSGBs can apply for a large group exemption for the season. The online application allows organizers to apply for multiple date events. I must remind the public that the Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Phase Reopening Regulations 2021 require all large group exemptions to use SafeKey. This means that any group above the permitted group size must use SafeKey for all athletes, officials, and spectators. I appreciate the difficulty this can place on some of our sporting groups, particularly for children under 12. However, I must remind everyone that vaccination is free and is available to everyone over the age of 12 and provides a safe key for all such events. As such, I encourage our athletes and our sports enthusiasts to get vaccinated. The return to sport guidance requires antigen or lateral flow testing for athletes and officials. However, this is a separate situation from our safe key requirements for large groups. Immunized persons must have a negative antigen or lateral flow test before competing. Unimmunized persons must have a negative antigen test or lateral flow test taken twice per week. Persons already participating in school or perhaps work-based antigen test programs will have those tests recognized for sports participation. As indicated, the return to sport guidance is under review with the NSGBs as well as the ministry, and they will be consulted, and an updated version will be released soon. Until then, I appreciate everyone's collaboration to get us over the line and out of this current outbreak. Our numbers are much improved, but we're not out of the woods yet. So the return to sport guidance remains necessary. As competition resumes and as spectators return, please do so safely. Continue to practice all of your COVID regulations, precautions during your training events, as well as your competition events. Sport is an important outlet for stress, anxiety, and highly valuable for our overall well-being. And we want to see sport continue without disruption. So as I close, I want to share my appreciation for everyone's collaboration as well as their patience. I know you all share the concern for safety first, and as a responsible citizens as well as sports people, I know you will do everything possible to follow these rules to keep yourselves, your families, and our community safe. Thank you very much.
Media, finance staff.
Minister, how much is this driven by the fact that we'll be hosting a PGA tournament starting tomorrow, and it's taken us this long to get an update regarding local sports and fans being able to go to local sports?
Well, it certainly was important to me and the ministry, of course, to make sure that we got this update this week, given the fact that the PGA Golf Tournament is here. We're certainly glad that they're here. They had a wonderful presentation and a very, very thorough COVID guidelines which they presented, and we're certainly glad to have them here. It certainly puts Bermuda on the map, and we're certainly glad about that. But as it relates to your particular question, what's important for me and for the ministry is that we've been tirelessly working behind the scenes to get to this point. I'm just really, really glad that now, given the fact that we're seeing our numbers improve, that we can actually return to competition.
Mm. Now, 4B, return of fans and sport, we got 3 days before this comes into effect. Is that realistic? I know some sports have been waiting almost a month for an answer regarding what they can do. So how is this going to be a realistic putting in the paperwork and getting it back in order to get people tested if they need to be tested for this weekend?
Yeah, we certainly understand that everyone, of course, would have loved to have advance notice. But of course, we couldn't make the announcement until such time as we thought it was appropriate and safe to do so. Also, we have been working, of course, with the antigen testing framework, of which we've released to the national sporting bodies. It's my knowledge, of course, that some sporting opportunities will be able to take advantage of this late notice. Others may need a little bit more time. But I'm just really, really glad that we're at a point right now where there's a green light that we can actually resume competition.
And what is the update regarding the cost of this testing?
I don't have a particular update on the cost, but I've been made to understand that some of these antigen tests can range anywhere between $5 to $8 per kit. For a season-long situation, that certainly can amount to a significant amount of money. As such, I would imagine that's going to be a particular impediment. But I'm confident that somehow, somewhere, we'll be able to find the funding, either through private donations or through the community, to ensure that these antigen tests are widely available so that we can use them for sport.
And my final question would be, in your talks with the NSGBs, some are struggling to pay regular cost. How are they? What's the talk between the government and the national sports governing bodies on the payment of these tests?
Yeah, they've made it quite clear. Of course, it is no secret that over the last year or so, our national sporting bodies, particularly our larger ones like football, for example, have really, really struggled without having competitive games, without having your clubs open. There's no gate receipts. Revenues are down. This is a really, really difficult time for sport overall. The government, of course, is aware of that. The NSGBs have made it quite clear that they can't afford to pay for these tests, and we certainly recognize that. We don't have a lot of money to donate towards these things either. As such, there's something that we're going to have to continue to work through and talk through. So right now, the plea, of course, is wherever funding is available, whether it be public or private, anything that we can give towards sport, so that we can get our kids and our athletes back out there training and playing is something I certainly encourage.
I'm going to have another one.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Wondering, what should a local sports game with spectators look like under 4B? So with the number of spectators and the number of players, according to this limit we have, what should it look like if you've got 20 players or 20 players and substitutes and managers on the field? What are you going to have in the stadiums? How's it going to work?
Yeah, so what we've been working with regarding our large group exemptions for sporting events, particularly those that have multiple events, is to approve those large group events and the spectators based on the venue. So different venues have different capacities for approval for large groups, for example. The NSC, it can sit, 2,200 easily. I think it's approved for 1,100 for spectators. So based on the unique situation regarding the venues, the number of spectators can vary.
So walking away from the NSC, but looking more at the local clubs, does the 20-person limit for a game include the footballers, the managers, and the spectators, or are you seeing them as different groups, since they will be quite distant from each other and at several locations?
Yeah, so we certainly ask for that level of detail when we're doing the application.
Okay.
When the application is approved, it's approved for a total number. So when the application is finally vetted and approved, that total number encompasses both the spectators as well as the athletes and officials that are perhaps on the pitch.
So you are essentially saying that there would be it would be very hard to hold any events without exemptions.
Right now, it's almost impossible without an exemption to hold a sporting event. Right now, of course, the current limits are 20. So it's very, very difficult for most sports to operate safely with just 20.
Okay. I've touched on everything I wanted to touch on
I have one more. We just day before yesterday, it was approved that a hotel was going to be able to have up to 500 people in a room authorized. We don't get that many people at a football game or at a hockey game or rugby game and everything. How can we put these things quickly in motion to ensure that all these sports that take place outdoor can get a season-long approval?
Mm-hmm. Season-long approvals are available. Of course, the best way to get that done as quickly as possible is to visit the website online and go through the application process. If you need any help, is actually just pick up the phone or give largegroup@gov.bm an email, and someone will be able to step that individual through the process to fill out the application correctly, because we're unable to actually approve applications that are not fully submitted as relates to all the information. But we can and have approved multi-date events for a season.
And what's the timeline for approval?
Timeline from start to finish as relates to a completed application, we can get through that application within 7 days.
So anybody that's behind the 8 ball this weekend is out?
No, not necessarily. So, we're constantly working on applications every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And but by and large, between 7 to 10 days, we can turn around an application. If, for example, today we don't have any applications that we're currently vetting, which is not true, we can certainly get to that quicker than we can before. But of course, if there is something that is time sensitive, we also try to make sure that we're keeping track of those events that are coming in that perhaps may have a start date that is time sensitive. And if that be the case, we can certainly give that situation some priority.
Hello. I just wanted to touch on what you were saying about looking for donors for antigen testing for the sports clubs. This, particularly the search for donors, is going around a bit at the moment when it comes to youth and schools, because speaking to the Minister of Education last week, they're looking for donors to provide antigen testing for the public schools, and we know that there have been donors for the private schools, and now we're looking for possible for sports events. Is it your opinion that that donors should focus primarily on children's and youth sports and providing testing for those, since it's that group that are currently excluded from free vaccination? Or do you think they should be donating to whatever they like, or would you like them to prioritize children's sports?
Well, of course, I'm the Minister of Youth, Culture, and Sports, so if it was preferable to have some preferential situation, we certainly would love to have someone support YSR and our NSGBs. But having said that, of course, it's important to get the message out to the community that we're all in this together. And if you have the ability to donate some antigen tests, they will be well received. If they go to education, then great. The fortunate piece for that is that if that child is participating in that testing and education, it also doubles as a test for sports as well. So, that's something that we're really, really glad to report. But otherwise, in that going forward, we're talking about sport may need in excess of 50,000 kits across the country for perhaps a 9-month period.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, media. Thank you, Minister. That concludes
Thank you.
our press conference for today.
Thank you.